that's why we talk about road time and book time. If your Masonic experience is limited to one lodge or one district, sometimes every lodge in the district operates the exact same. And so you go into the East thinking
Oh,
that's
most of the time they do.
most of the time, but you're going into the East thinking that's just how it's done. Why would you have ceremonial openings and closings to a business meeting, right? You got to do that. You got to do it to open and close a business meeting. But was that really the original intention? Probably
Right.
not. We have to have business meetings because we're a 501(c)(3), but
Why would it be called ritual
yeah,
instead of just a format or I don't know, ceremony? Well, ceremony is close to ritual, but it's a watered down version of ritual. But
mhm.
why would it be called specifically ritual if it wasn't important? If it didn't lead to something that was more internal than
Yeah.
external?
Why would it exist in the first place? If we're business meetings are easy. You gavel it open, declare it open. I go to a lot of business meetings, right? You gavel it open, you discuss the business on the agenda, and then you declare the time you close. That's the business meeting. Believe me, planning and zoning, EDC, city council, they don't have ceremonial opening and closing, right? We're
Uh-uh.
unique. Lions Club, no. Rotary, no. They're just
Yeah.
open, then they just close. Unique in the fact that we're
Everybody
unique.
on the board just says here, 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 here. Actually, everybody would say their name and say present so that it would be recorded because we got a recorder going at the same time.
Hey, I've been to lodges where they do that. Well, really, it's introductions, but it takes just as long, especially when you're done with the titles and everything. But the
Well,
point
that's
is,
because people feel that that's the important part of the meeting, and it's not the important part of the meeting. Who cares who's there?
yeah,
What matters is, or who cares? Well, we care
we
that
care that they're
everybody's
there.
there,
Yeah,
but who cares what their titles are and all the hoopla? That was the reason we're supposed to wear black suits because it's not supposed to be about ego.
well, we're supposed to meet on the level, but it's been 15 minutes talking about our titles. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
But I see that more in like the DFW area. It's not really out in the country. That's one thing we do right, I guess. But the point is that we actually have to. I completely lost track of my point because we got off.
That's because if you're in overalls with a title, then it just looks silly.
I guess so. I don't see a lot of brother with overalls, but I guess my point is if your experience has led you to the conclusion that that is the summation of your duties as a worshipful master, I encourage you to question, why do we have these ritualistic opening and closings? Why do we have these charges? These things aren't formalities. If they had no value, we would not do them. Like I said,
Right.
you don't need these things for a business meeting. You don't need these things for a 501(c)(3), but they exist. That means they are remnants of another time when the meetings did not just consist of business meetings. And we did something that was actually we actually did things that required us to, hey, let's be on the level. Hey, let's remember we're brothers. Let's just be willing to have conversations and be like grown men about this. Not even grown men, Masons, which is totally different.
Right.
We are very careful, especially if you have a charge at closing for like Master's Lodge. We are very specific, like, hey, we're going to talk about things. This is a very special place. This is a sacred place. This is temple, not like from a religious sense,
For
but like a
for a
spiritual
specific
sense.
for a specific purpose.
And when we leave, let's part as brothers and
Yes.
be good to one another. And that exists for a reason, because we are not meant just to have business meetings. And if you need help, and we said this before, but if this is your first time listening, if you need help, if you don't know how to get to that point, reach out to your dentist, man. Reach out to our Facebook group, leave a comment and tell us how to get a hold of you. We've worked with brothers before, and to great success. And it's not us. It's not that I'm super wise. It's not that Dennis is super wise. Well, I guess we are, but that's because we're standing on the shoulders of giants, if that makes sense. We have studied under men wiser than us, and we have talked to many successful lodges and many successful jurisdictions, and we have learned what they're doing that works and what they're doing that doesn't work, and we know how to apply it to lodges. And
Right.
and oddly enough, just because we're a member of a lodge doesn't mean it's like a lighthouse lodge, because it goes both ways. You have to. There doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good the advice is if someone won't listen to it. But it is there if you will listen to it. And with the lodges that have those worship masters that have, they've had really good years, and the
Yeah.
lodges have had good years because of that.
Yep. We in all of the brotherhood, when it comes to the business end of it, each brother has one vote. That's all you got. And so we have one voice, and it's always going to be the will of the lodge. So if you're outnumbered, then you're outnumbered, and that's great. It's the will of the lodge. You just got to let it go. You got to appreciate the fact of the pure democracy in it. You don't pack up your toys and go home. Now, on that note, it's not a bad thing to venture over to a different lodge that does provide the things that you will gain value from. I personally do that. I have lodges really close to me, and I go to lodges that are very far from me. Hell, I travel all over the state, but on a regular basis, I go to the Scottish Rite very often, AMD, KSA, Oso Naval. Those are the ones that I attend the most because I gain some value from those experiences that I don't gain right next door.
I just want to point out to you what you're saying. If you a lodge that is being really successful and they're actually practicing Freemasonry, they're not being successful because they have a great fundraiser or something like that.
Right.
Don't feel guilty for going. In fact, take as many brothers as you can, because what you'll see is you'll start seeing a bleed over effect. They'll learn things as they go, and you'll start seeing those things being applied at your lodge,
Yes.
and your lodge will grow from it. And so this is the value of travel. And this is why we say go to OLT and take as many brothers as you can. Send as many brothers as you can to OLT, because the more that see the good ideas are really strange in that they spread, right? Bad ideas do also, but good ideas chop them off. So
Energy.
so if you have bad ideas coming from some other lodge, take these guys to a place where there's good ideas. And even if it's just you, because these brothers at your lodge are going to see that, hey, I'm getting value from these concepts. I'm getting value from what this lodge is doing. And even if they don't eventually come with you, they're going to start listening to you because they're going to see it's having a positive effect on you. So don't feel bad about it. Do it. I encourage it. It's how you grow as a Mason. It's how you learn best practices for your lodge. There's so many things that we've discussed a lot on the show, as we talked about. But there's so many things that I never would have thought of, even through conversation, unless I had witnessed it in lodge. I went to one lodge and they have a different lighting scheme for every degree. Never would have thought of that. I think it's a fantastic idea. Have we implemented that in any of my lodges? No, it's costly. But if I really wanted to drive it home, I would start taking brothers to that lodge as much as I could. And I promise you, we'd be burning incense and we'd be having lighting schemes. And
Yes.
you start seeing that practice. And I think those are great practices. I'm just not at a lodge that we're ready for that yet. But I think that's something I would like to see down the road. And when I'm ready
Right.
for it, I'll start taking them there.
For sure. For sure. I something I'd like to circle back to when we talk about traveling and learning from other lodges. You had touched on many well, we've touched on many different things tonight on King Arthur and knights and the chivalric type nature of duty and honor and justice and all that kind of good stuff. And the reality of it all is that's why we have some of those chivalric degrees, and it's to help to drive home those lessons that you might not have learned before. It's not, it was never intended to be just a degree saying, oh, you're a knight, you're a Knights Templar, whatever. That's not what it was all about. The whole idea was to drive home this idea of duty and honor, which creates nobility. When I joined years and years ago, one of the most important reasons that I joined was because I remember the way that my aunt used to speak about Masons. And also my mother-in-law at the time, she spoke extremely highly about Masons and and certain members of the family that were in the past, and so did my aunt, and they all held them in high regard, very high regard. And that's what nobility is having that type of reverence from other people because they see the difference in you. That's nobility. And that's what duty and honor creates is that nobility. That only comes from the combination of spirit and intellect. And going back to the traveling, speaking of the Knights Templar, what happened there when they were only learning, when they were only members of the church doing what the church bidding was, they were atrocious people. But once they started learning some of the different lessons of the land and understanding these different ways of faith and coming to a realization that maybe things at home weren't exactly the same as the things over there, then they started changing as an organization, as a group, and then they became hated. It's very interesting to think of that. Think about the folklore of King Arthur, and if any of y'all don't know, King Arthur was a fictitious character. Now, I don't know if he was based on any particular person. I don't think so because of the legend of the sword and the stone and all that. The that goes to another thing, the sword and the stone. That's another example of pulling the spirit out of man. You've got the stone, which is the earthly, and you're pulling the sword of justice out of the stone. That's the only thing that's just is God. That's the only thing that's just is the godly nature of divine truth, and that's where the power came from.
There's also the aspect of the same legend with the Lady of the Lake coming out of
the
hand out of the
and
water.
I was going to mention that earlier. I was going to mention that earlier when we talked about the baptism or the raising of the out of the water. It's the same concept. It's that spiritual rising coming from the earthly. And maybe that wasn't what this was supposed to be as far as our talk tonight, but it's very important that we understand that because it is that marriage. That's what makes us Freemasons. That's what binds us to our brothers. And that's what's going to keep us from running away every time we don't get our way. Because if we're in it with our brothers, then our ego is pushed aside. Go ahead. Sorry.
This is probably not timely, but I just wanted to verify before I said anything. But tarot swords are associated with air, and air is associated with
spirit.
Yeah. So
spirit.
Anytime you see a sword and it's being extracted from the earth or the water or something like that, you have something divine that's being separated from something mundane, something being cleansed. So I just wanted to point that out because it's interesting.
Yes. Which card is that? The 9th card with the swords, the 9 swords looming above the person in the bed. He's having bad dreams or whatever. That's bad spiritual karma right there, or conscience. That's bad spiritual. That's an impending doom type negative context with that card. It's kind of crazy.
Well, similarly, and I won't go into ritualistic detail.
Yeah, we don't
but
need
like the squaring compasses, they're triangles, and not just triangles, but triangularly. If a triangle is pointing downwards, then you're looking at it's symbolic for the earth, and if it's a triangle pointing upwards, symbolic for spiritual things. But furthermore, with the square, what do you make with squares? If you're drawing, you draw a square. Square is earth,
earthly. Yes.
and compasses are used to make circles, which are
and to measure the heavens.
There you go. They're divine, and so there is significance in their placement and their reference. It's not just, and we could get more into this on like inner circle conversation, I think. But.
Yes, we can't really go into this too much, but that is important stuff that we ought to know, because it's stuff that every Mason should know. That those are very basic principles. But the fact that we were talking about the different things that make up who we are and the different pieces of the pyramid, it's the same thing with our degrees and our lessons, and unless you have all the pieces and you have them in that setting and with the brothers, then you're really not going to get what the secrets of Freemasonry are. You have to experience it. It's an experience. It's not just a thing. It's an experience.
I gotta
And
write a note. Just something I want to tell you about.
I like those. I would be writing notes in our talk so I didn't get so scattered on some of these thoughts because I don't have my glasses tonight. I broke them and I went and bought some other cheapos and to replace them, and I got a magnification that was twice what mine was. If I could see, I would have seen that it was the wrong magnification.
So my studies lately have been taking me, and this isn't a book study podcast, so I'm not going to go into the whole book. But there's an
If
excerpt.
you'd like a book study podcast, there is a very good one that just started,
What's
the
it called?
Masonic Shelf, with my personal mentors, and they bled off onto Justin Bradley Kohanke and Chris Williams. They are the hosts, and then one of our inner circle members, Jason Reichenberg, he's producing it for them. They're old, but they're good.
But
They're
one of the-
oldies but goodies.
They're oldies for sure. But one of the books I'm reading right now is Bridge to Light, and in one of the first chapters, it talks about the concept of duty. And so here's the quote: "Duty is the one great law of Masonry. Out of all relations of life grow duties, as naturally grow and as undeniably as the leaves upon the trees." And so that's really what spurred this whole conversation, aside the fact from some actual things that we've observed. But we're discussing, or should we talk about some problems that we're seeing in the course that made me think of those quotes out of that book. And so duty is a very important part of Freemasonry. In fact, I would say, aside from the spiritual growth, I don't even know that's aside from it. But along with the spiritual growth, one of the biggest aspects of Freemasonry are the duties. And maybe that's what turns away some people when they should have turned away at the West Gate, is they realize the duties associated with that. And honestly, some people aren't ready for more duties. Some people aren't mature enough for more duties. And honestly, some people have entire Masonic careers and they haven't taken on one duty. They failed upwards somehow.
I keep that. I'm so sorry. I'm just not mature enough for this conversation. I keep thinking about you
told
saying.
myself I would be.
I know. I told myself the same, but I'm thinking the whole time. He said duty, and then you said they go their whole Masonic journey without understanding or taking a duty seriously or something like that.
It's a real common problem. Sometimes with older brothers, they get constipated. All those spaghetti dinners,
right,
clogged them up. But I guess with that, I'll go ahead and go.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have interrupted you, because that is important to note that many brothers do go without understanding the importance of duty throughout their entire journey. There's a certain part of what we go through in the very beginning that tells us that it's not supposed to interfere with certain things. And
I like how you apologize for interrupting me and then went to a 10-minute monologue.
My duty to educate.
Let me do my final thoughts, and you can go into yours.
Oh, I don't. That's not a final thought. It's rolling off of what you said. So
I said, let me do mine, and then you can share your.
No, people use the excuses of the duties to themselves to disregard the duties of others and our brotherhood.
That's a good point. Man. So I'll say that I'll wrap up on that. Right. We do have duties, and it's even pointed out we have greater duties to our family and to our job and to our faith. None of these things are to be ignored to the detriment of the fraternity. But we do have a duty, or the brotherhood. We do have a duty to our brothers. We do have a duty to one another. And it's pretty high up there. We take that upon ourselves. And we need to be willing to follow through with that. And it's never too late to re-obligate ourselves. It's not something that you have to be formally done. Just like I'm gonna rededicate myself. I'm gonna re-obligate myself to my fraternity and really start paying attention You could be 6 months in to being an officer and realize, man, he's right. I've done a terrible job. It's time to fix that. It's never too late to fix that. And honestly, you could be 11 months in, and it's not too late to fix that. You might not get advanced, you might not move to the next position, but it's not too late to fix that. You can always say, moving forward, every office I have, every Masonic duty I take upon myself, I'm going to take seriously. And moving forward, it will never be a problem. So you can always correct these problems. And I'll point out, I hinted at the beginning of the episode, neither one of us are by any means perfect. We were having this whole discussion over the phone the other day, and as we were talking about it, I was reflecting upon my duties in the fraternity, and there have been times where I have not done a great job. I
I've
just
dropped the ball. Yeah.
we both have dropped the ball. And you could say, well, you can make any number of excuses, but that's all they are. And really, at the end of the day, that's all they are. Excuses are useless. You either accomplished what you said you're going to do, or you didn't. Now, are there extenuating circumstances that I don't consider excuses? Like someone's ill in the family. You can't help when that happens. You can't help, like we said, family comes before the fraternity, right? Your job suddenly wants you to go out of state for 8 months. You can't help that. That's your job. That's how you provide for your family. You can't help things like that. But the football game, conflicting, I'm sorry, things like that, they are not a priority. Freemasonry needs to be a higher priority than those things. That said, I feel like I've grown a lot just from having the conversation. And so I hope other people get value out of these things. I hinted at the inner circle earlier, and if you don't know what the inner circle is, it's a private group with fans of Masonic Improvement, basically. And the way you get in, there's a little join button at the bottom of this video, and you're not joining the fraternity. You're not becoming a Mason by clicking join. You're joining the inner circle. You're becoming a YouTube member, and that gets you access to videos like this with no ads, and it also gets you access to private Zoom chats that we have with the inner circle. It gets you access to being part of the conversation on our lives. Get you access to our another one of my books here. Get you access to our book club where we discuss. Right now, we're talking about Kabbalion. Gives you access to things like that. So there's a lot of value to be had from that. Or if you just appreciate or enjoy the content we create and you just want to be a silent contributor, there's a handful of guys that do that. We this this is this is my duty to the fraternity. This is my biggest contribution to the fraternity. And it started off as a hobby, and it grew to a point where it feels like a duty. And it doesn't I don't say that like it's depriving of joy, because I think a lot of people associate duties with something that's dry and you don't enjoy, and that's not what I'm saying anymore at all. I enjoy a lot of the stuff we do, but I have to ask myself, and it's going to sound conceited, but I have to ask myself, if Masonic Improvement stopped tomorrow, would it be a detriment to the fraternity? And I feel like it would. I feel like it would. And it's not to put like a big chip on my shoulder or anything, but and Dennis has had this too. I've had enough brothers come up to me and tell me what a difference this has made in their lives and in their lodge and in their entire jurisdictions at some point. I've had people come up to me and say they joined because of the show. I've had people come up to me and say that they got re-involved with the fraternity because of our show. And that means you have an obligation to the fraternity to continue providing that light. And so this is I have other obligations in the lodge. I have other duties that I do in person, but I feel like this is my big contribution to the fraternity. I feel like, and I don't know how Dennis feels. I can't speak for him, but this is my biggest duty. And how that's provided, the best way that that's provided may vary, right? But where I'm going with this is any assistance like you can provide. If you want to join the inner circle, if you just want to be a silent contributor, if you want to contribute verbally and share your thoughts and things like that, it goes a long way. Like this is not free to do, right? There are a lot of expenses that come to. Granted, when I first started this, it was on my cell phone in my classroom after hours, right? But this has grown, and the more a channel grows, the more expenses are associated with it. And so I'm not trying to like, take a whole lot of time talking about the expenses, but I just want you to know like there is value to be had, and if you enjoy anything we do, I invite you to join that inner circle. But also, I wanted to point out, just so that getting into these, there's been times, especially early on with Masonic Improvement. We like it there were entire months where nothing came out because it was just when I felt like I had something to say. And that's changed, right? And so this is my contribution. I don't know that I ever write a book. I've tried. I'm not that kind of guy. Maybe one day, but this is something that will outlive me. And so this is hopefully my contribution. And this is what I feel is whatever shape or form that takes, if it's lives or a video a month or however is best. Ultimately, we figure that out because we're still working on that. But that's my duty. That's what I contribute without. But keep in mind also, right? This isn't my full time job, and I do have. I was telling Dennis before I got here. I
Giving himself an out. Oh my gosh.
I
Build it up and give yourself an out.
I still have duties to my family. I still have work duties, and there have been times where I hadn't been able to be on the show because I have work obligations.
Me, sir.
What?
You have duties to me, sir.
I might have obligations to my community or my family, and I just throwing that out there. But I do enjoy this, and I do appreciate the feedback I get. And I know Dennis appreciates it too when people tell us that it makes a difference, and that's why we do it, man. And more of a rant than a final thought, but I was really trying to think about how duty relates to me. And I was thinking because I'm a district instructor, that's a duty. I'm a treasurer, that's a duty. I'm a chaplain, there's duties associated with that. They're not always huge duties. But then I was thinking about Masonic improvement in general, and that is a duty. That's a duty I have to my fraternity. And just like a worship master is supposed to provide light to his lodge, I feel like Dennis and I somehow fell in this position where we're supposed to provide light to the brotherhood as a whole. And that's a big commitment. It's a big duty. And that doesn't mean that we have all the answers. And that doesn't mean you have all the answers. A teacher doesn't have to have all the answers. A teacher just has to get you to think outside the box. A teacher has to open your mind to new possibilities. And that's what we're doing here. So that's my final thought. A little bit longer than usual, but I've been gone for 3 weeks. So
Wow, that was a lot longer than usual. That was I think you've even topped some of the ones that I've given, and I've given some pretty long final thoughts. Well, I will speak for myself. No, actually, first I'm going to start by saying we talk about our duties to our family, to God, to different things that are supposed to take precedent or whatever or whatever. But in all reality, if we're doing Freemasonry right, then our family will recognize that it's a good thing. Our spiritual life will be better because of what we're doing. Our work life will be better because of what we're doing, who we are. I say that all the time. The big deal since the early 1960s, late 1950s, since the big boom of masonry has been membership, membership, membership. Well, I I think that the reality is that the decline of membership has not been because all these brothers died. The decline of membership has been because we have not carried ourselves in a way that other people want to emulate us. And so if we're doing our job, if we're doing our duty, then others will want to emulate us. And we've seen that even with our show. We've seen other shows sprout out and do similar things to us, and even and it's more especially do their own things, which is awesome. It's the There's no competition here in Freemasonry, at least not for me. I'm not really worried about what Joe Blow is doing as long as it's not a detriment to the fraternity. If it makes us look bad, then I'm not real proud of that. And I know we've had some very controversial episodes and stuff that maybe may or may not have been our finest works. I certainly don't think they were our finest works, but I don't think that they were that big of a detriment. I think they were just a taste thing based off of other people. But I've seen some things out there that were more of a detriment to the fraternity, a detriment to the brotherhood. I should say. And I think that boils down to what we're in it for. I'm not in it for the likes. I'm in it. If we want you to subscribe and to join our inner circle, if this is the kind of thing that interests you, if you understand, if you have that sense of duty within, and you understand that sense of honor that comes from fulfilling your duties and the noble nature of life well lived, then man, this might be the right fit for you, because that's what we're all about. The nobility that comes from living a life well lived. You just can't get that from many other organizations. This is one that combines the intellect and the spirit. It's not just all about the spirit. It's not just all about following rules to become your best self, or to live in a world of sin. It's not about that. This is something that's to help you manifest a new reality in your life that's fulfilling, that's loving, that's understanding and caring and nurturing. That's what Freemasonry does for me. That's what it does for the men that I'm closest to within Freemasonry. That's why I am close to them, because I realize that they get it. They understand it. And not to say that these men haven't been a part of some of the biggest levels of the business end of Freemasonry that there is, because they have. And I work within some of those circles as well. And that's all good and great. But if we're doing it without following our compass, our moral compass, then what good is it to anyone? So that's the coolest thing, is when we start hitting on all cylinders, because we get that right. The tough thing is that when we let down our brothers because we're feeding our own egos instead of feeding our brothers, that's the sad portion of that can happen. And just like Justin said earlier, it's not like I haven't before. I've let brothers down. I've let down people in commitments, and I've done my fair share of being on the other end of this spectrum. But all things being in the balance of one of the divine truths in life is that all things have degrees, are degrees of nature. And I can shift the degrees of nature from that negative to the positive. And I can do that today, just like Justin was talking about. There's no reason why I have to be stuck on one way of doing things for the rest of my life. I'm organic in nature. So is Freemasonry. It's been organic in nature, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Brothers, if I were going to join the inner circle, I think it would be for the book club and the lack of commercials, because it's pretty cheap not to have commercials. That's a pretty good deal in my opinion, because I despise commercials in my YouTubes, and I watch them all the time. We don't just talk on the show, but I watch other Masonic podcasts. I watch all kinds of other help videos and things like that. I not only, well, I don't do that on YouTube, but I not only read Morals and Dogma, but I listen to it at the same time through the Scottish Rite, the Southern Jurisdiction Scottish Rite, and because it helps me to absorb it a little bit more. And then I can also listen to it purely when I'm driving down the road and things of that nature. I think that we ought to touch base on maybe some of the chivalric orders at some point, and discuss some of the references in the allegory of those, of not necessarily the ritual that we have, But hell, we can do it with the King Arthur folklore, because that's what it was. It was teaching lessons through the folklore of this character called King Arthur. And so I think we could really touch base on a lot of things that people have misunderstood over the years. It's a lot like Robin Hood. There's a lot of allegory there. It's not just about taken from the rich and given to the poor. It's not just about that. That's not the only story. How do I know that? Because Walt Disney was a Freemason, and he would not have done that with his stuff. No, just kidding. But the reality is that if you are a brother and you've chosen to do this, take it seriously. Because the men that risked their lives to bring this about for you, they took it seriously. And they didn't take it seriously for this to be some civic project, some civil service group. They didn't take it seriously for it to be the Lions Club or the Elks Club or any other animal club out there. They took it seriously so that it would make an impact on the world. And the United States was the biggest impact from Freemasonry in history. And where are we today with the U.S. Freemasonry? We're shrinking while the rest of the world is growing. And why is that? Maybe we need to get back to the basics. Maybe we need to be Freemasons and not just another civil servant fraternity. Maybe we need to put the other objects back into the ark and not just have a loose leaf booklet of rules. Maybe we need to take each other seriously and nurture those relationships to where we can have those conversations back and forth that will help us to become better. Because we don't all have to be an echo chamber. That's not the discussion here. The discussion is that we all get together and come up with what's best for the brotherhood and ultimately mankind. And if we're not making an impact on mankind without throwing dollars at scholarships and having gun raffles and pancake breakfasts and all this kind of stuff. Well, the pancake breakfast goes along with fellowship, and that can be good. But not if it's your big fundraiser for your scholarships. If we're not making an impact on mankind in a way that's more golly, I'm trying to come up with the word, more conducive to that of a noble nature, then what are we doing here? We're losing some brothers because they don't get it. But one of the cool things is that right now we're gaining a lot of brothers because they do get it. They're seeing on the internet where we come from, what we are, and they've been learning a lot of these mystery schools on their own. They've been educating themselves on all the best things of Masonry because that's what we advertise. We advertise all the best parts, and they're starting to come in the doors. So if we're not representing that, and we're telling them to go back to the internet for all their information, and we're not showing them what it means to be a part of a true brotherhood, then what are we doing? You know, the most important things that I would like for anyone out there to take away from in this whole conversation is the unity of the spirit and mind. In my opinion, that's what creates our soul, which is our signature for God, right? So God knows who each one of us is, and we are all part of God's great house, and we're all identifiable with our signature, which is our soul, and that comes from that marriage between the intellect and the spiritual. That's what builds our soul, for those two things. Now, Freemasonry isn't a church or anything like that. It's far from it. But what it should be doing is opening up the divine truths to us that we're not going to find in the church. That's the important thing. Understanding the godly nature of our world, and in our world, of our world, outside of our world, the godly nature, the all in all. That's what we're supposed to be learning, the stuff that we're not learning in church, the stuff that combines us all as one common mass, because we are one brotherhood under one God and not a bunch of different gods. So, with all that being said, we have a duty to our God, not my God. We have a duty to our God. We have a duty to our country, to our neighbors, family. You have a duty to our lodges and the temples that they reside in. We should take it a little bit more seriously. With all that being said, if you'd like to join us, we have a great inner circle meeting regularly, and we also have our Sunday night lives that we do. And I hope you gain value from this. Otherwise, keep it between the points.